Welcome to podcast number 19. I'm kicking myself in the ass to get this done early so I can post it in time. Let's get all the introductory crap out of the way. It's time for the flingin' segments. Companions of the Dance Hall, Act 2, Scene 5, opens with the 5 companions and the 2 cell swords being thrown into a prison cell in Irenicus' lair by Bodhi. With nothing better to do, Jarlaxle and Treri explain that Irenicus is once again seeking a way to get his soul back and amass ultimate power. With no more demigod souls to harvest, he's going for the next best thing, the soul of an iconic and legendary hero, meaning Drizzt. The ruby in this case is a focus for the evil soul-stealing ritual, because I needed a reason for Treri to steal the ruby like he did in the books, and I wrote out Pasha Pook, so that's what I came up with. Seems like a change that's fairly faithful to the Harry Potter musical aesthetic that I'm going for. Jarlaxle and the companions reminisce about their cameos in Baldur's Gate 2, which ticks Treri off because his cameo was cut out of the game. They try to make plans to escape the place, the various wacky comedy bits eventually leading Drizzt to the conclusion that he can use the magic rope that Lady Illustriel gave him. The 7 of them climb the rope and escape the cell. So, the Team Salmon segment. Salmon is the first of the segments to have reached the point where I have to focus on current updates rather than past works, if there are any current updates to speak of every week. Well, there are 8 people on Team Salmon now, so more people work for the company than subscribe to the channel. That's kinda depressing. Mackenzie invited her sister Lindsay, who's an animator who hopefully might find the time to animate pivotal moments, and I also reached out to Natty's sister Michelle, who's an artist, does some comics. I think she'll be really good at helping with the storyboards. And Christine has been composing the songs for the Choices pilot episode. And every day at work, I'm having new ideas for the choices, so it's coming along nicely. Once Casey is done with the character design and Christine with the melodies, we're going to start storyboarding, and maybe I should start talking about this in other venues like Facebook and Twitter, since, as far as I know, nobody listens to the podcast anymore. One big update, I came up with a kind of pitch for the choices, something to put in the description of every video, maybe the back of the DVD, and it goes like this, and I'll put it up on the visual aids too, so you can see how it looks, baby. Gird your loins for high fantasy adventure full of music and laughs. The Choices are the latest adventuring party to come together in the magical realm of Cosmos. Before they can stop their nemesis Jax from enacting the will of the evil god Apep, the Choices must first make a name for themselves as a company. It's epic adventure, harrowing drama, and sexy shenanigans as the Choices carve out their place in Cosmos history. I hate it, but it'll work. We now come to the next Droon segment. Book 17, Dream Thief, returns us back to normal-ish books after the earth-shattering special edition number 1. Dream Thief is illustrated by David Morrell. Haven't seen him in a while, though Tim Jessel still does the cover. Chapter 1, Droon Dreams. We open on Eric having a Droon dream. Not a prophetic one like usual, seemingly just a normal dream that happens to be about doing heroic stuff in Droon. A mysterious female voice draws him out of this dream and into the more typical dream about Droon, of the prophetic variety. The female voice tells him, "The one who strikes the wolf at noon shall earn a secret wish in Droon." His dream then transitions into the goings-on of Jabbo, who is in a mysterious dungeon studying the Eye of the Viper. Jabbo recites an incantation written on the eye to summon forth a warrior called the Hakoth Maul, a man with black wings and a wolf's head. Chapter 2, Wake-Up Call. Eric wakes to find Julie and Neil already in his room, having had Droon dreams of their own, that were interrupted by Jabbo. Eric finds that he has gotten a souvenir from his dream, a silver stone with an engraving of his name in the ancient language. They head to Droon, finding themselves in a cliffside field of grass where they are attacked by fire-breathing snakes, chanting Jabbo's name. Chapter 3, The Cave and the Cliff. Kia and Max appear and chase the snakes away. Meadow snakes are normally not aggressive, and it turns out everyone is seeing Jabbo in their dreams. They go to meet Galen, who's staying in a nearby cave he apparently frequents. He is calling upon a being known as the Faraway, who sometimes grants him visions, invoking this being with a song. "O come to me, my Faraway, your voice as soft as feathers seems. Come share your wisdom night and day, in wondrous visions and in dreams." But the Faraway does not answer. Galen explains that the Hockoth Maul originate from the ancient days of Gaul, and that the Coiled Viper is the third of Spar's three powers. Max does some research and discovers that the Silver Stone originates from the Darklands. Then Queen Ortha shows up and tells Galen that there's chaos in Bangledorn Forest. Galen looks at a map and his eye is drawn to the place where Bangledorn Forest and the Darklands meet, thinking this must be where Jabbo is lurking. Galen sends a message to the King and Queen via his magical messenger Flink, and the party travels to Bangledorn Forest. Chapter 4, Trouble in Paradise. In Queen Ortha's palace, two troops of monkeys are attacking each other, the two leaders of the troop both claiming to be Jabbo. Ortha and the heroes break up the fight, finding that the troop leaders are a pair of siblings by the names of Woot and Twee. Ortha snaps them out of it, and they recall having dreams of Jabbo and wanting to be powerful rulers like him. Ortha decides to take the duo with them on the quest, and it turns out they recognize where Jabbo is in their dreams, an ancient temple of silver stone at the forest's edge. Woot and Twee pack lots of fresh biscuits, and the expanded party heads out into the depths of the forest. Chapter 5, Over the Sea of Trees. They travel through the forest via the vine roads, bridges of vines and branches that wind through the forest canopy. They stop for the night, where Eric once again dreams of Jabbo, who is now wearing a crown and calling himself king, as he resolves to set out with the Hockoth Maul and find those who are trying to stop him. As the party enters the swampy Darklands, the Hockoth Maul, along with Jabbo astride a groggle, come to attack. Taking offense at being compared to Spar, Jabbo burns down the bridge, leaving Kia in peril. Chapter 6, On the Last Bridge. In desperation, Eric throws his silver stone at the Hockoth Maul, and it falls into the fog, where the Hockoth Maul goes diving for it and doesn't come back. Flink returns with a message from the King and Queen, who need Galen's help. Galen departs, and Ortha leads the way onward. Woot and Twee construct snowshoe-like thingies that'll allow them to walk on the surface of the swamp. Chapter 7, The Silent Stones Speak. They slog through the swamp for hours before coming upon the Silver Temple. A massive tree grows from the temple. The Hockoth Maul appears, and Ortha holds him off as the rest of the party proceed into the temple. Chapter 8, The Everything King? In the temple, Jabbo has decorated the room and himself in true regal fashion, complete with a massive cape and a sword that uses the eye of the viper as a pommel. They try to convince Jabbo that the eye and the Hockoth Maul serve only Lord Spar, and that Jabbo will be in trouble if Spar ever returns. This makes Jabbo angry, causing him to hulk out into a true dragon, hence why his cape is so big. There's a bit of a battle until Jabbo's fire breath burns the Bangledorn monkey biscuits to a crisp. Jabbo is devastated at having destroyed baked goods and returns to his normal self. Calmed, he realizes that it was the eye of the viper that was influencing him to want to take over Dreams and Droon. He never dreamed of anything more than making better pies. He willingly surrenders the gem to Kia. The Hockoth Maul, however, still looms over them. Chapter 9, Battle in the Branches. As the group battle the Hockoth Maul, Eric hears that mysterious female voice again. The one who strikes the wolf at noon shall earn a secret wish in Droon. Eric thinks this is his cue to be a hero, so he joins the battle. Ortha comes in with reinforcements of monkeys, and the Hockoth Maul is pelted with sticks and nuts until Max wraps it up in a web. Eric takes his stone back, but to his surprise, it's Julie who strikes the wolf once High Noon hits, getting scratched for her trouble. Eric falls out of the tree. Chapter 10, Far Away. Eric finds he's falling, but the Faraway rescues him, allowing him to gently fall to the ground. He discovers that among the roots of the tree growing out of the temple, there's a glass coffin containing the body of Queen Zara, who speaks to Eric in his head, telling him he is a true wizard of Droon. He has a vision of the future. Nothing concrete, just he, Julie, Neil, and Kia traversing a vast desert toward a city of light. And Zara tells him to brace himself for the good times and bad, and to nurture Julie's newfound powers. Julie, Neil, Kia, and Galen appear, and Galen sheds a tear at the sight of his mother. But their victory today has driven the Darklands out of Bangledorn Forest, and the sun shines over the temple, turning the Hockoth Maul to stone. Galen tells Jabbo that he'll have plenty of time to bake pies in jail. Did I just make a Timo Supremo reference? Anyway, Jabbo is sentenced to bake pies in Firefrog Mountain just in case, and Galen reports that Salamandra is stirring up trouble in the west. The trio don't have a chance to come with them to battle her just yet, though, as the Rainbow Stairs have appeared. Julie effortlessly flies from the bottom of the stairs to the top, to Eric and Neil's alarm. So this was nice. I really like the ability to return to what's basically a run-of-the-mill Droon book, even if it did have some big shakeups, like Zara's tomb being discovered and Julie gaining her powers. It's truly awesome. And I'm very, very fond of Jabba for some reason, so this book is a favorite of mine since it's the one where he's the main antagonist. In my fantasy adaptation, this book is the Season 3 premiere. Season 3 consists of books 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and Special Edition number 2. Queen Zara, who was seen but not heard back in the Knights of Silver Snow, actually gets dialogue in this book. First as the Faraway, then being revealed as Queen Zara. So here is where she would be cast in an animated adaptation. Once again, my fantasy cast is Olivia Wilde. The Hockoth Mall, back when I envisioned this as a live-action series full of practical effects, I imagined having the fighting style of a sumo wrestler, being portrayed by a real sumo wrestler in a costume. This is the first appearance of Flink. Flink is described very inconsistently throughout the series. Sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes a fairy, sometimes just a ball of light. I think I'd go for the female portrayal, and just a ball of blue light. My dream cast for Flink, Christine Cavanaugh, was unfortunately the first person in my Droon fan cast to pass away, which she did shortly after the first time I read through the series. In the interest of not including any deceased folks in my fan cast, let's go with Kathy Cavadini. There we go. The monkeys Woot and Twee look like any other Bangledorn monkeys, distinguished by Twee's purple bandana and Woot's red belt. Their genders are also inconsistent throughout the series. This book, their first appearance, states that Woot is a girl and Twee is a boy, so I'll go with that. For voices, I cast Kath Soucie as Woot and Rob Paulson as Twee. This week, in Keys and Kingdoms, we're watching 1961's 101 Dalmatians, kind of a low-key classic, and the same year's Babes in Toyland, whatever the hell that is. Dalmatians, as I mentioned earlier, was the first Disney film to employ xerography, which eliminates the inking process by photocopying the animator's sketch directly onto the animation cell. This elimination of a step is good for cutting costs and producing a film faster, and is the reason that most animation from the 60s, 70s, and 80s has a sketchy look for it, as this film turned it into the industry standard prior to digital cells being developed circa 1990. Xerography was a necessary technology for the development of this film in particular, since it contains massive crowds of characters, every one of whom is covered in dozens of black dots. Can you imagine hand-inking a single frame of this film? It would have taken forever and given you nightmares for weeks. I would imagine it did anyway. This film's opening credits are a bit more creative than usual, fun to look at. You don't have to just read them. The music and the visuals are very fun. We open in London at the flat of bachelor musician Roger Ratcliffe and his Dalmatian Pongo. Pongo considers Roger to be the pet in their relationship and wants to find his human a mate. He looks at various women on the street, all walking dogs that resemble them, finally chancing upon Anita and her Dalmatian, Perdita. Pongo makes Roger take him out on a walk and arranges a genuinely adorable meet-cute. And we dissolve straight to their wedding, and from there to Perdita's pregnancy, whilst Roger is composing a new melody. Roger's singing voice has a very pronounced American accent, in contrast to his English-speaking voice, but I find that's not so uncommon. A lot of singers sing with American accents. And of course, what you came into this movie to see is the antagonist, Cruella de Vil, Anita's socialite friend who's a bit too into fur. Roger immediately comes up with lyrics for his melody, painting Cruella as a despicable villain, having no idea in the moment how right he is. Cruella is basically the perfect villain, presentation-wise. Skinny and cheek-bony, wearing a massive fur coat, her multicolored hair trailing sickly green cigarette smoke everywhere she goes. And upon her first appearance, suspiciously eager to meet Pongo and Purdy's pups. 3 weeks later, on a stormy October night, Perdita gives birth to a startling 15 puppies. One seems to die, but Roger manages to revive it. I remember the live-action remake of this film, made in the 90s, oddly, well before Disney live-action remakes became a cliché, established that this one was named Lucky due to his survival, but that's not established in this film. I wonder if it's from the book. Cruella shows up and says she'll buy the whole litter once they develop spots, but Roger and Anita are suspicious of her motives, and despite the difficult prospect of raising 15 puppies in a small London flat, refuse to separate even one of the puppies with their mother. During this scene, Cruella's fountain pen explodes, covering Roger with spots and Pongo with more spots than usual. Why would you do that to your poor animators? Cut to a few weeks later, where the puppies are little kids who love watching TV, and some of them have distinct appearances and personalities. Not all. Can't blame them. There's 15 of them. They can't all be quite unique. Once Roger and Anita take the adult Dalmatians out for a walk, we meet the Baden brothers, Jasper and Horace, whom Cruella has hired to steal the puppies. This film employs some rotoscoping, not for humans, but for vehicles, allowing the cars in the film to be very detailed and realistic. It's a nice touch. The story of the theft of the puppies makes the front page of several publications, which is odd. Cruella passive-aggressively calls Anita on the phone to offer her sympathies, and there's no doubt in Roger's mind that Cruella is responsible. And here we finally get some possible Keys and Kingdoms content. The Twilight Bark, a system that the dogs of London use to spread news and gossip. I'm still wondering how to fit intelligent animals into an otherwise standard fantasy setting. See, it's easy enough to create a campaign setting influenced by, say, The Lion King, since there's no evidence that humans do or have ever existed in the Lion King universe. But for a film like this, well, granted, there are speak with animal spells in D&D, already implying that animals in the standard fantasy setting know more than they're letting on. It appears it's a tradition in Disney dog movies to have cameos from previous Disney dog movies. Nearly every dog character from Lady and the Tramp makes a cameo appearance during the Twilight Bark scene. The bark reaches a farmstead owned by some sort of military bloke whose pets, a horse, cat, and dog, all behave like military personnel as well. When they get the news, they go to investigate the abandoned DeVille mansion. There, the cat, Sergeant Tibbs, discovers that not only did Cruella steal the 15 puppies, but also purchased an additional 84 Dalmatian pups from various pet stores, and Horace and Jasper are watching over them. Word gets back to Pongo and Perdita, who escape the apartment to go off to rescue their puppies. Cue travel montage. And this surprised me, it's not until 50 minutes into the film that we learn Cruella's iconic motives, the making of Dalmatian skin coats. We find out when she's telling Horace and Jasper to kill and skin the puppies now. Jasper protests that they won't get more than half a dozen coats out of such small dogs, but Cruella wants the police off her back now. Cruella's rage when Horace and Jasper are resistant is something to behold. Fortunately, Horace and Jasper are determined to finish watching their game show on TV, so Sergeant Tibbs manages to smuggle the 99 puppies out of the manor. The game show Horace and Jasper watch is quite amusing, and we get to hear quite a bit of it in the background as Tibbs smuggles out the puppies one by one. 3 contestants try to guess what crime a prisoner committed, and if they get it in 10 questions or less, he wins an all-expense-paid vacation after his sentence is over. Horace and Jasper are greatly amused by the program, as they apparently personally know today's inmate. Once the game show's over, they find the puppies are gone, but track them down, and there's an epic cat-and-mouse game throughout the manor. Pongo and Perdita reach the manor just in time to fight the Badens off, so Tibbs and the puppies can escape. And the last 20 minutes of the film is the slow progress of traveling back to London through the snow in the company of 99 puppies, and the logistics thereof. Marching an army ain't easy. Jasper, Horace, and Cruella are ever on their trail. The climax is a big car chase, with the Dalmatians stowing away in a moving van while Cruella tries to run them off the road, eventually getting herself into a wreck. In the meantime, Roger's song about Cruella has become a radio hit and made them a bunch of money. Pongo and Perdita return with all 99 puppies, and the humans resolve to buy a big plantation out in the country to take care of them all. The film ends with Roger coming up with another new song, Dalmatian Plantation. So good movie. It's got a lot of charm and subtle comedy, a really pleasant art style, non-stop cute doggos coming out the wazoo, and the most delightfully over-the-top villain Disney's ever done. Up next, we have Babes in Toyland. I gotta say, this will be the first movie in the collection in which I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. So first card of the opening credits, we have a stereotypical silent film villain with a top hat, cape, and mustache, played by Ray Bolger. We have 2 generic-looking young people, who I'm guessing are the main romantic pairing of the movie, the girl played by an actress cool enough to go by simply Annette. No last name. And Ed Wynn is in this, so cool. There's Tommy Kirk again, and a bunch of actors I've never heard of, but may have meant something in 1961. And the movie opens with a fucking duck talking to the audience. Didn't see that coming. And he presents us with Mother Goose. Okie dokie then. She introduces us to Mother Goose Village, where there's a musical number introducing us to Bo Peep, Jack and Jill. Okay, I get what they're going for here. Nursery rhymes are kind of like fairy tales. They'll fit right in with the Keys and Kingdoms crowd. There's Little Boy Blue, Jack jumping over his candlestick, and Simple Simon and the Pieman, which, if that's a real nursery rhyme, I've never heard of it before, so good on them for surprising me. And finally, 7 minutes into the film, we get to the fucking point. Our two generic lovebirds, Tom and Mary, are getting married. Okay, I'm invested. What can I say? I'm an easy man to hook. I always want to know what happens next. But from the crooked mansion up on the hill, our silent film villain, Barnaby, spies on them and talks to the audience for a moment, explaining his villainous plan to marry Mary for her father's money, which Mary herself doesn't know she'll inherit the moment she gets married. And yes, the fact that Mary and Mary are homophones is exploited to comedic effect in Barnaby's spiel. He plots to do away with Tom with his henchmen, Gonzorgo and Rodrigo, who are morons, because apparently this live-action Disney film from the early 60s is actually a kid's cartoon from the early 80s. What the hell is up with... I mean, this film deals in cliches I assumed were never ever played straight. Pleasant guy that I am, I'm taking it as part of the film's charm. Okay, there is one breakaway. While Gonzorgo is a moron, Rodrigo is a mute, murderous psychopath. Okay, that's better. Barnaby and Gonzorgo sing a song about how much they love money, and it's genuinely charming. And okay, Mary is apparently the Mary of the nursery rhyme, Mary, Mary, quite contrary. Okay, so our main characters, or at least one of them, are from nursery rhymes too. That's a nice touch. Tom croons a little love song to Mary, so okay, this is a real musical. Only 17 minutes in, and we're on our third song. Animated musicals are never quite as densely songified as the real deal. But here we have it. It is, after all, based on an operetta, according to the credits, whatever an operetta might be. But whatever happened to film musicals where the actors can actually sing? I never imagined anything in modern media could outstrip the annoyance of celebrities with totally mundane-sounding voices starring in animated films, but celebrities with mediocre singing voices starring in musicals went and beat it. Okay, I did a little IMDb check at this point in the film, and the one named Annette, who plays Mary, is apparently actually Annette Funicello. I know that name. Wasn't she a rock star of some kind? Wikipedia. Okay, she was one of the original Mouseketeers, and one of the founders of the beach party genre. Neat. So she basically invented the 1960s. So Gonzorgo and Rodrigo whack Tom over the head with a mallet and stuff him in a sack in preparation for dumping him in the sea. They come upon a camp of Romani. They're not called Romani in the film, but I've been asked not to say the G word, and when someone tells you a word is offensive, you believe it and stop using the word because it's 2019 and I'm not a fucking caveman. So the two henchmen decide to sell Tom to the G words and tell Barnaby that they killed him in order to double their profits. In the following scene, there's a brilliant visual gag where Mary seems to be wearing her wedding dress, but then it turns out she's just standing behind the mannequin while she tailors it. I had to rewind the film and watch the moment again. It was really good. Better than it sounds. Okay, I've just realized a lot of the film's dialogue is in rhyme. It is set in Mother Goose Village, after all. At first I thought it was just a quirk of Barnaby's, but nope, Gonzorgo does it too. I'll have to pay attention to see if it occurs elsewhere as well. Anyway, Gonzorgo tells Mary in song that he witnessed Tom sink at sea. Barnaby sets the two henchmen off to Phase 3 of the plan, stealing Mary's flock of sheep so she can't financially support herself, while Barnaby himself goes to put the moves on Mary. Another musical number? I gotta remember this, putting exposition and motivation into songs. I've just been dealing in emotion in my musical numbers, but there are definitely other things songs can achieve. Yes, indeed. Also, at the 30-minute mark, a very pointless, elaborate dance sequence from Barnaby. Dance solos are a valid part of musical numbers. And then there's another freaking song immediately of Bo Peep telling everyone that the sheep are gone. Okay, that's one disadvantage to genuine musicals. Sometimes they have to throw in a song about absolutely nothing just to pad the runtime or meet a quota or something. Nah. Some kid named Bobby reports that the sheep's tracks lead to the forest of no return, so I guess there's no return from there, go figure, so everyone loses hope. As if to prove my previous point, Mary then has a song about how hard it is to manage her finances. Catchy, I replayed it. So she considers marrying Barnaby, and the 5 kids who live with her for some reason, Bo Peep among them, are determined to get the sheep back so she won't have to. Including a pair of twin girls who say everything in perfect unison, because that's neither creepy nor cliche, not remotely. Barnaby calls a town meeting to announce his engagement to a devastated Mary, and has hired a band of Romani performers to celebrate the occasion, much to Gonzorgo and Rodrigo's horror. There's a fairly visually impressive performance, somewhat ruined by the small bit of singing they do during it, which doesn't much fit the tone. Tom works among them, disguised as an elderly fortune teller named Floretta, which doesn't make much sense. Isn't this the day after he was sold to them? Whatever, it's a musical set in Mother Goose Village. Regardless, his disguise is actually convincing, comes with a fake nose and chin, and his falsetto singing in the disguise isn't bad, so props to his actor. Floretta tells Mary that Tom is alive and that she will marry him, and predicts Barnaby's destruction. I really wasn't sure where Tom was going with this, but then at the end of the number he just removes his disguise, so, well, there you go then. There's nearly 50 minutes of the movie left, and Tom and Mary are reunited, so at this point I was intrigued at where it was going. Meanwhile, the kids search the Forest of No Return for the sheep. There we go, there's our plot. And Tom and Mary find a note from the kids and go searching for them. Barnaby chastises his henchmen and tells them to kill Tom for real this time, and the evil trio pursue Tom and Mary into the forest. A bunch of dancing trees surround the children and sing to them. IMDb credits Thurl Ravenscroft as and Candy Candido being among the trees' voices, which I definitely heard, and the overall sound made me wonder if perhaps the Mellow Men did this number? Turns out this is why it's the Forest of No Return. If anyone ignores the various signs warning people away, the trees will keep them there forever. I replayed this song as well, so this is generally a pretty good musical, at least 2 songs worth listening to twice. Tom and Mary meet up with the children, and not believing that the trees have captured them, decide to settle down and make camp for the night before finding their way home. Fairly pointless song there as they go to sleep. Barnaby and his guys go in for the kill, but the trees awaken again, making Tom and Mary's disbelief in the whole trying to get to sleep scene pretty pointless, but okay. The trees say that the toy maker will decide their fates, for they are on Toyland property. Great, an hour in, and there's finally half an explanation of the title. Incidentally, when the trees are speaking rather than singing, Ravenscroft and Candido don't seem to be among them. The kids are enthusiastic about being stuck forever in a place called Toyland, so in another musical number, they willingly go with the trees. Tom, Mary, and the children go to Toyland and meet the toy maker, played by Ed Wynn, and his assistant Grumio, played by Tommy Kirk. The toy maker, true to his name, invents toys, while Grumio invents truly astounding gadgets, including an automated toy-making machine, which the toy maker is initially apprehensive about, but he has to admit he likes the results. The toy maker tries to run the machine by himself to meet his deadlines, which overloads and destroys the machine. And by this point, I was once again wondering where the heck the movie was going. Gotta appreciate a story that keeps doing that, I guess. Tom, Mary, and the kids go to speak to the toy maker. He explains that he's not only the toy maker, but also mayor of Toyland and chief of police. Tom and Mary say that since Toyland seems so short-handed, they're willing to work for him so he can get all his toys made by Christmas. Yeah, I complimented the film's unpredictability a moment ago, but this feels an awful lot like the plot just started 3/4 into the movie. There's a making toys on the assembly line musical number. It's cute. I noticed that in this number, just like in the Unbirthday song back in Alice in Wonderland, Ed Wynn only sings when he absolutely has to, preferring to just speak to the music. When night falls, Barnaby and his henchmen, who have been watching our heroes all this time, enter Toyland. Tom and Mary have put the children to bed and are continuing to work late, and Mary sings a song about the doll she's just made. Is that really necessary, movie? I never thought I'd be the kind of reviewer who addresses the movie as movie, but this movie's just gone and made me do it. Okay, it turns into a Tom and Mary love song. That's fair enough. Okay. Of course, this being a Disney movie, they probably met the day before the movie started. Okay. Yeah, cheap joke of the kind I promised I'd never do, but I came up with it, and I just had to. Grumio presents the toy maker with another new invention. It's a gun, and you shoot it at an object, and it turns that object into a miniature toy version of itself. He demonstrates on a chair. I don't know if that is, as he claims, better than the automated toy-making machine. Doesn't seem cost-effective building objects and then shrinking them down. Oh, and he also demonstrates that shooting the object a second time obliterates it on the molecular level. Yeah, I'm not digging this invention quite so much. As with the previous invention, the toy maker loves it, so he grabs it and starts shooting it at everything, and to my amusement, Tom asks the toy maker how this is a better way to make toys, asking him, where are we going to get the big things to reduce to small things? And the toy maker asks Grumio the same question, and Grumio has no idea. So, okay, the movie picked up on the logic as well. It's the character of Grumio who didn't think the concept through. So the toy maker tosses the gun out the window, where Barnaby catches it, believing he can use it. He turns the toy maker into a tiny little guy and sticks him in a birdcage, saying he'll be needing him. When Barnaby carries the miniaturized toy maker around, the toy maker is represented by a little doll with kicky legs. It's cute. Gonzorgo, at this point, arbitrarily decides that Barnaby has gone too far and announces that he's going to expose Barnaby to the people of the village. Naturally, Barnaby turns Gonzorgo and Rodrigo into toy-sized guys as well, before doing the same to Tom and barging in on Mary. He threatens to shoot Tom a second time unless Mary will marry him, and she agrees to do anything he says. So they set up an official Toyland wedding with the miniaturized toy maker presiding, the henchmen as witnesses, and the tied-up Tom as the best man. The henchmen untie Tom, and as the toy maker stalls the ceremony, Tom summons forth an army of toy soldiers depicted with pretty crummy stop motion to march upon the wedding. This is the climax, and the soldiers being animate and capable of following orders was not in any way foreshadowed. Still, I'm sure even crummy stop motion is nearly as much of a labor of love as traditional animation, and making all the huge sets and props for the shrunken people to interact with definitely paid off. It was real cool. So after a musical sequence that takes for frickin' ever, the miniature army bursts in on the wedding and starts shooting at Barnaby. Their guns don't deal much damage to him because, they're toy soldiers, and he soon takes up a toy cannon of his own and fights back very effectively, destroying most of the soldiers. But finally, he slips on all the marbles that have been used as ammunition. Fed up, he fetches the invention to obliterate Tom. Mary shoots at the invention, causing it to backfire and turn Barnaby into a toy, and Barnaby and Tom duel with toy swords among the wooden bodies of all of Tom's fallen soldiers. Okay, now that's a climax. The toy army against Barnaby was really underwhelming. Tom defeats Barnaby, and Grumio returns with a gun that turns tiny things back to normal size, restoring everybody. The toy maker insists on being the one to cure Tom, and surprisingly nothing goes wrong there. The children wake up and accuse the adults of playing with the toys without them, and the adults confirm that that's what's been going on all night. Back in Mother Goose Village, Tom and Mary finally have their wedding and go off on their honeymoon. So that was a cute movie. I don't know that I'd watch it again, except to replay a couple of the songs. It was all over the place and a bit too heavy on the cliché character archetypes, and they never did find the sheep. But it had heart and creativity, and its overall intent, that seemingly being to be a cartoon in live-action form, was achieved with great success. So, yeah, and as far as this collection goes, I have yet to see a film which I'd recommend not seeing. If you haven't seen any of the items on my collection, you really should see every one. And now, a recap of what I learned about Keys and Kingdoms canon, based on the half of the Silver Age films I watched in Sweden, because from the Silver Age onward, the years get a bit too long to recap all at once. From Cinderella, I pondered a Mishka subculture based on the film's mice. Specifically, I joked that they speak Gungan Basic, so perhaps some Mishkas speak kind of pidgin English. I pondered fairy godmothers as a sort of subset of fairies, and characters who speak in rhyme. From Treasure Island, I started thinking about piratey things, and I wondered, should each theme get its own campaign setting, in addition to Cosmos having all of the themes? Lots from Alice in Wonderland. There ought to be some sort of realm of dreams, critters inspired by the half-object wildlife of the film. Really innovative size-shifting mechanics, I just don't know how to pull that off. A psychedelic fey creature based on the Cheshire Cat. The Queen of Hearts is a great villain archetype in any setting, along with her card soldiers. Lots from Peter Pan as well. I talked about the character of Frederick Fawn and how Neverland is part of the Feywild, so that would mean I'm including D&D's planar cosmology. Fawn's abilities include a detachable shadow, vocal imitation, supernatural seduction, causing inhabitants to forget their pasts. I also considered the nature of pixie dust, possibly attributing that power to nymphs instead of pixies. Although in the 5e pixie rules I'm using, pixies of a certain level can cast a flight spell, so maybe that's a pixie dust thing. We'll see. And I thought of inhabitants of the Feywild, like pixies and mermaids, recalling how I once read a tidbit about goblins living in the Feywild, and reminding myself that creature origins don't necessarily have to represent where they live now. From 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, definitely gave a lot of thought to fantasy genre submarines, undersea cuisine, motherfucking treasure, savage natives, and I wondered about giant squid. Specifically, the first time I designed a fantasy world, it had krakens, but not giant squid, because I felt having both would be redundant. But having read up on krakens a bit, I decided, yes, they can coexist, with giant squid being very natural creatures, and krakens being supernatural abominations that only superficially resemble the giant squid. Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, gave me thoughts about assortments of dialects, duels of honor, and politics. From Lady and the Tramp, nothing really as I expected going in, very slice-of-life movie. And finally, Old Yeller, well, it's a slice-of-life western nature, got me thinking about slice-of-life stuff in all the genres and themes. And I guess rabies. Yeah, it's worth thinking about. So there we are. Next week is podcast number 20, which kicks ass. Let's get her done.